Last week, Sophie Cunningham, once a role player known for hustle off the bench, didn't hesitate when teammates stayed silent. She stepped between Caitlin Clark and a charging opponent, throwing a legal gauntlet at the league itself. Late in the third quarter at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the energy was palpable.
She's already proved herself. She's won. And then there were some, ladies last night that were trying to go a little physical. And in last year, I think something we noticed, and I think a lot of people noticed, is when Caitlin would get bullied, nobody would do nothing.
That's right.
Nobody would do nothing. It was like, hey, they didn't know, like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe people are doing this to Caitlin Clark. Teammates weren't jumping in there. They bring in Sophie Cunningham. I had no idea. Sophie Cunningham was a black belt at the age of 6.
Yeah.
Indiana feverish chants, national TV cameras trained on every possession, and a rookie sensation commanding the spotlight. Caitlin Clark, averaging nearly 20 points per game, was in rhythm when defenders turned physical. First came the forearm into her ribs on a baseline drive, no whistle. Then a shoulder shove as she rose for a jumper, still nothing. Finally, a clear swipe across her cheek as she cut toward the basket, a hit so blatant even casual fans gasped, yet the referees stood mute. Fueled by the crowd's mounting fury, Sophie Cunningham, typically a measured presence off the bench, reached her limit. Snatching the rebound at center court, she exploded into a full-court sprint.
Oh, you know what? I'm just going to be me. I don't go in there trying to predetermine anything. I'm dialed in. I need to focus on hitting my shots, making sure I'm executing the schemes right. I'm not focused on the extracurricular activities. And you know what? During that, it was just part of the game. I think the refs had a lot to do with that. It was a build-up for a couple of years now of them just not protecting, the star player of the WNBA. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do. And I'm a team player, so.
In an instant, she met the next would-be tackler head-on, planted her feet in a textbook defensive stance, and wrapped her arms wide as a living barrier. The slow-motion replay captured her resolute expression. Brows furrowed, jaw clenched, body unyielding. Only then did the whistle finally pierce the tension, but it was Cunningham who drew the flag.
Definitely the W, especially if Sophie Cunningham is going to continue to fight people for messing with Caitlin Clark, because it feels like Caitlin Clark is going to get treated in a certain way in this league for a long time. She's not a rookie anymore. Okay.
Officials cited unsportsmanlike conduct, immediately removing her from the game, while the player she defended walked free. The arena's roar shifted from astonished approval to stunned outrage, marking the moment that would become one of the WNBA's most controversial sequences. Less than a day later, the WNBA released a brief statement. Sophie Cunningham would sit out the next 2 games for reckless conduct. The announcement made no mention of the series of blatant fouls that provoked her reaction, only that Cunningham had overstepped league boundaries. Within minutes, fans flooded Twitter and Instagram, posting video clips of earlier contests where players delivered far more dangerous hits without so much as a warning. In one clip, a veteran forward drove into Clark's midsection, drawing a warning at most. In another, an off-the-ball elbow went completely unnoticed. Yet here, when Cunningham intervened to shield her teammate, she alone faced discipline. Critics pointed out the inconsistency. If protecting a teammate is reckless, what then are repeated off-ball fouls? Supporters demanded clarity, but the league offered only platitudes about upholding sports integrity and ensuring player safety, without explaining why a defender's charge went unpunished while Cunningham's protective block earned a suspension. For players accustomed to tight officiating, the message was chilling. The WNBA would rather penalize those who step up than those who step over the line. The decision rippled through locker rooms league-wide, igniting debates about fairness, player safety, and the true standards by which conduct is judged. The moment Sophie Cunningham's suspension hit the wire, the hashtag #StandWithSophie shot to the top of Twitter's trending list, generating over 1.5 million mentions in under 24 hours. On TikTok, her coast-to-coast block was remixed into thousands of user-generated clips, collectively amassing more than 50 million views within 2 days. Instagram metrics tell a similar story. Cunningham's follower count jumped from 45,000 to over 120,000 in just 48 hours. A near 170% increase, while engagement on her posts spiked by 400%. Merchandise portals couldn't keep pace. Within 3 hours of the announcement, Sophie's jersey was officially marked sold out on both the Fever's online store and major retailers like Fanatics, with aftermarket prices doubling on secondary market sites. Fan-made bodyguard t-shirts and hoodies flooded Etsy, some listing price tags as high as $75, more than triple the original retail cost.
Guess whose jersey sold out today? The one and only Sophie Cunningham, aka the Enforcer and Caitlin Clark's bodyguard. Sophie Cunningham defended the face of basketball, and America was in love. I've honestly never seen so many people agree on one thing on Twitter, and they did last night. And also realizing that you wouldn't want to fight Sophie Cunningham after seeing this head.
Even unofficial sellers reported waiting lists of hundreds of fans eager to sport her name. Mainstream media, which often reserves in-depth WNBA coverage for playoff runs, pivoted immediately. ESPN's Sports Center opened its top segment on the Sophie Cunningham effect, featuring analyst breakdowns of both her block and the league's response. The New York Times ran a front-page online story headlined, "When Protecting a Teammate Becomes Taboo," exploring the broader implications for women's sports. Overnight, Sophie transitioned from a solid role player to a cultural icon, proof that when one athlete refuses to stay silent, the world listens. In locker rooms from Seattle to Las Vegas, whispers gave way to heated debates. Veteran stars praised Sophie's courage. "I would have done the same for any teammate," admitted one all-star guard, while others cautioned that turning the court into a courtroom could disrupt the game's rhythm. NBA legend Sue Bird took to Twitter, demanding clear, written guidelines. Players deserve to know when they're risking suspension simply by standing up for each other. Meanwhile, rookie conversations flooded group chats as young players shared screenshots of supportive DMs. "You showed real heart," one teammate texted Sophie. Even opposing coaches, typically guarded in their comments, conceded the dilemma. Do I bench my best defender to protect my star or let her get roughed up? Across the league, the call was unanimous. Officials must define where protection ends and punishment begins, and they must do it now. With the league's credibility on the line, the WNBA must now confront a fundamental challenge: how to enforce rules firmly without punishing acts of protection. If a teammate's block earns a suspension while blatant flagrant fouls go uncalled, fans and players will lose faith in every whistle. League executives are reportedly convening an emergency officiating summit to draft explicit guidelines, outlining when a defensive play crosses into reckless territory versus when it's a justified shield. Referees will undergo enhanced training sessions, complete with video review scenarios emphasizing context, intent, and player safety. The goal: a transparent, tiered penalty system that distinguishes protective interventions from genuine misconduct. Only by codifying these standards can the WNBA restore trust, ensure consistent calls, and prevent future locker room flashpoints. Sophie's act of defiance has leapt off the court and into mainstream culture. Youth basketball coaches across the country have taken to Twitter with the hashtag #ProtectYourOwn, sharing drills that emphasize defensive positioning and team-first instincts inspired by Cunningham's block. Within 48 hours, dozens of camps reported a 20% uptick in registrations as parents pointed to Sophie's play as the ideal lesson in loyalty and courage. Brands wasted no time. Fitness apparel companies rolled out limited edition bodyguard performance tees, selling out their initial runs in under an hour. Energy drink giant Volt announced a multi-year sponsorship deal with Sophie, featuring ad spots that reenact her slow-mo block in dramatic reverse footage. Even streetwear labels are cashing in. Pop-up galleries in Los Angeles and Chicago sold out framed prints of her momentary silhouette, some fetching over $200 a piece. This isn't just a sports headline, it's part of a wider wave of athlete empowerment. Just as the U.S. women's soccer team battled for equal pay and tennis stars advocated for mental health days, Sophie's stand has become a rallying cry for holding institutions accountable. In classrooms, student athletes reference her block as a case study in standing up for teammates. On podcasts, commentators debate the finer points of sportsmanship versus solidarity. By refusing to stay silent, Cunningham tapped into a deep cultural current, one that demands not just rules on paper, but real-world protections for those who protect others. In an era where athletes increasingly leverage their platforms to shape social narratives, Sophie's moment has proven that true leadership sometimes means drawing a line in the sand, and that the reverberations can reshape an entire sport's identity. One hard foul, one decisive intervention, and one brave lawsuit. Sophie Cunningham's stand has already changed the game. The WNBA now faces a choice: defend a blanket suspension that feels tone-deaf in today's sports climate, or pivot, revise its rules, and emerge stronger with clearer, fairer standards.